Night settles like velvet across the world, soft and endless, filled with 1,000 silent stars. Their light drifts through the darkness like ancient whispers, carrying stories older than time itself. Among those stories is one that has nearly been lost, a name spoken quietly by mystics and dreamers through the ages. Enoch, a man said to have walked with the divine, who vanished from the earth without tasting death. His tale is not one of myth alone, but of mystery, of hidden wisdom buried beneath centuries of silence. Tonight, as you rest, allow that silence to open, for within it lies a voice that has never truly faded. Long before temples or kingdoms, before prophets stood upon mountains to receive divine law, there lived a man whose understanding of creation went beyond anything known to humankind. He gazed at the heavens not as a map of stars, but as a living text, a language of light written by the hand of eternity. His heart moved in rhythm with the cosmos, his thoughts echoed the harmony that flows through all things. To walk with Enoch is to walk between worlds, to feel the presence of something vast and eternal, closer than breath and older than the sky itself. Stories tell that Enoch was unlike any other. While generations around him lived in pursuit of power and possession, he sought only understanding. His eyes reflected both heaven and earth, and within their depths lingered the calm of one who knows the order behind chaos. The more he listened to the still voice within, the more he became a bridge, a messenger between the mortal and the divine. What he heard in the quiet of creation would one day shake the foundations of belief, for his writings contained visions of angels, of judgment, of the destiny of worlds. But those writings, sacred and strange, did not survive unscathed. Over the centuries they were hidden, banned, even feared. Scholars erased his name from sacred lists, and priests sealed his words behind layers of doctrine and denial. Still, fragments endured in the whispers of the faithful, in forgotten scrolls buried beneath dust, in legends that refused to die. For truth, once spoken, cannot be silenced forever. Enoch's voice continues to call through time, waiting for those willing to listen once more. To hear his story is to journey beyond history, into the realm where spirit and mystery intertwine. It is to remember that ancient wisdom still breathes beneath the noise of the modern world, and that prophecy may dwell not in fire or thunder, but in stillness, in light, in the quiet pulse of the heart. As you listen, allow yourself to drift, not away from the world, but deeper into its hidden rhythm. Let Enoch's voice become a guide through the vast corridors of memory, where the human and the divine are not divided, but endlessly joined. If tales like this speak to your soul, if you feel drawn to the mysteries that lie between heaven and earth, support this journey. Subscribe to the channel, leave a like to help others find these stories, and share your thoughts in the comments. Your voice keeps the flame alive, ensuring that the wisdom of the forgotten prophet continues to awaken hearts beneath the eternal sky. Twilight draped itself over the ancient world when Enoch's story took its mysterious turn. He lived among the descendants of Adam, a righteous man walking through a land already heavy with corruption. While others built cities and worshipped idols of stone, Enoch walked a different path. His steps carried a rhythm in harmony with creation, as if every movement aligned with the breath of heaven. People spoke of him as a man who saw beyond the visible, one who understood that every shadow concealed a spark of divine light. He was neither a priest nor a king, yet his presence evoked reverence among all who crossed his path. Legends whisper that Enoch's eyes held an otherworldly depth, reflecting not only the skies above, but the mysteries behind them. His life was not marked by miracles or battles, but by communion, quiet, continual, sacred. In ancient writings it is said he walked with God, a phrase so simple yet filled with infinite meaning. To walk with the divine is to live as though every breath is part of a celestial conversation. As Enoch's days passed, he withdrew more and more from the noise of men, listening instead to the silent symphony of the universe. One evening, as the world glowed beneath a copper sunset, he vanished. Witnesses, if any were present, left no clear testimony, only rumors woven into the collective memory of mankind. Some said the earth swallowed him whole, others believed he ascended on a chariot of flame. The ancient text of Genesis records his fate in just a few words. He was not, for God took him. That phrase became a riddle for the ages, a whisper of transcendence, an event that defied the finality of death. Mystics pondered whether Enoch had been transformed into light itself, passing into a higher dimension of existence. In Jewish mysticism, he later reappears under a new name, Metatron, the highest of angels, seated beside the throne of the Eternal. If true, his transformation marks a boundary crossed by no mortal before or since. The man became the messenger, the finite became eternal. His disappearance is not an ending but an unfolding, the moment when humanity first glimpsed what it might mean to evolve beyond the mortal veil. Stories spread across generations, retold around fires and within temples. Prophets spoke of him as a figure who never died, a bridge between flesh and spirit. Ancient scholars speculated that Enoch had been chosen to bear the burden of celestial knowledge, truths too radiant for ordinary minds to hold. His journey symbolized the path of enlightenment, the possibility of union between the human soul and the infinite. Through him, the divine mystery revealed that mortality is not the limit of being, but a doorway through which higher understanding may emerge. Philosophers later saw Enoch as the prototype of ascension, a living metaphor of spiritual transformation. His story resonated with seekers of every age who yearned for connection with the unseen. The very concept of being taken without death inspired countless interpretations. Some imagined divine mercy, others saw a cosmic invitation, that humankind itself was destined to rise, to rediscover its forgotten origin among the stars. Ancient sages imagined that before his departure, Enoch gazed upon the earth one last time, seeing not what it was, but what it would become. He foresaw the descent of the Watchers, the corruption of creation, the deluge that would wash the world clean. Perhaps this vision was too great a burden for any mortal heart to bear, and the heavens, in compassion, drew him away. His absence became as meaningful as his presence. Through that vanishing act, the universe left humanity with a question. Where did he go and why? His story reminds the world that the boundary between life and eternity may not be as unyielding as it seems, and in that question lies the seed of wonder, the beginning of prophecy, and the call to remember what was once forgotten. High above the mountains, where the air turns thin and the stars hang close to the earth, the first rebellion began. The Watchers, once radiant beings of divine order, gazed upon the world below with both admiration and longing. Their task had been to observe, to guard, to guide, without interference. But the beauty of creation drew them downward, and their hearts, once pure, began to tremble with desire. They saw the daughters of men, luminous and free, and the ancient texts say they found them beautiful beyond measure. That single thought, to take part in the human realm, shattered the harmony of heaven. Under the leadership of Semjaza, 200 of these beings made a fateful pact upon Mount Hermon. Bound by their oath, they swore to descend together, that none would stand alone in defiance. When their wings touched the earth, the ground quaked, and the light around them dimmed. The watchers no longer shone with celestial brilliance, but carried instead the heavy fire of forbidden will. They took wives, fathered offspring of immense stature, beings neither human nor angelic. These giants, the Nephilim, became the embodiment of corruption and chaos, consuming everything in their path. Ancient writings describe their presence as a distortion of nature. Where they walked, the soil bled. Where they ruled, humanity fell into despair. The Watchers, once guardians of divine order, now brought knowledge that mortals were not meant to hold. Secrets of metallurgy, enchantment, weaponry, and the reading of stars. What began as curiosity turned to domination. The world became filled with noise, violence, and pride, echoing the fall of those who had once sung in harmony with creation. Enoch, still among the living at that time, witnessed this descent. His visions recorded the sorrow of heaven itself, for the Watchers of light had become the teachers of darkness. The boundaries between spirit and flesh had dissolved, and through this mingling the natural order was torn. The earth, as described in his writings, groaned under the weight of their sin. Mountains trembled, waters rose, and even the stars shifted from their ordained courses. The Watchers did not merely alter the physical world, they reshaped human consciousness. Through their teachings, people learned to control nature, summon spirits, and manipulate fate. The old purity faded, replaced by ambition and false wisdom. Humanity reached for divinity, not through love or devotion, but through mastery and dominance. The same knowledge that once illuminated the heavens now burned the earth from within. As ages passed, the Nephilim spread terror, devouring both the land and its people. Their hunger knew no bounds, and their cries rose like thunder across the valleys. The world cried out for justice. The great archangels were sent to confront the fallen ones, but before divine judgment was unleashed, a messenger was chosen. Enoch. He would stand between heaven and the corrupted world, carrying the decree of judgment to those who had once walked among the stars. That moment marked the beginning of Enoch's transformation from man to prophet, from witness to messenger of divine wrath. As he spoke the words of the Eternal, the mountains darkened and the Watchers trembled. They knew the end of their dominion had begun, though they pleaded for mercy. Through him, the heavens reminded creation that even in rebellion, no being escapes the truth written in the foundations of existence. The fall of the Watchers remains one of the most haunting chapters of ancient memory. It is a reminder of how light, when twisted by pride, can become its own shadow. The descent was not only it was a reflection of the same longing that lies hidden in the heart of humanity, the desire to reach beyond one's bounds, to taste the forbidden fire, and to pay the price that follows. Night returned, and with it came silence. After the fall of the Watchers, Enoch found himself gazing at the heavens in search of understanding. The stars no longer seemed merely distant lights scattered in darkness. They pulsed with meaning, as though each one carried a message written in divine language. In his solitude, he began to discern patterns, recognizing that the cosmos itself was a vast manuscript, each constellation a sentence, each orbit a rhythm of the sacred. He realized that creation was not random. It was law, harmony, and prophecy woven together across time. The great vault of heaven became his teacher. Every movement of the moon, every rise and setting of stars revealed to him a fragment of eternal design. Ancient lore tells that he was guided by angelic beings, emissaries who unveiled to him the mechanics of time itself, how seasons were born, how cycles repeated, how the turning of the heavens mirrored the destiny of nations. Through this celestial revelation, Enoch learned that the same order governing the stars also shaped the fates of humankind. His writings describe how he was shown great wheels of light rotating above the earth, driven by invisible forces that maintained balance in all realms. These were not merely visions of astronomy, but revelations of metaphysical truth, that every action, every thought, every breath resonates through the cosmic web. To Enoch, the stars were not cold fires, but living symbols of consciousness. The universe was alive, speaking to those who had the courage to listen. It is said he was instructed to record these mysteries in heavenly books, engraved upon tablets of shining stone. Each inscription reflected a law of creation, the movements of celestial bodies, the ages of the world, and the hidden intervals between divine interventions. These records form the earliest foundations of sacred knowledge linking the heavens with the earth. Through them, he saw that the destiny of humanity was inscribed long before its fulfillment, waiting for the moment when wisdom would return to those who had forgotten. Enoch became the first astronomer, the first metaphysician, the interpreter of divine code. He perceived that light itself carried memory, and that the sky was an ever-turning archive of divine intention. Civilizations long after his time would rediscover fragments of this truth, building temples aligned to the solstice, pyramids that echoed the stars, and monuments that sought to mirror the heavens. What Enoch had seen in vision, later generations tried to replicate in stone. The understanding he received was not meant to grant control, but to awaken reverence. Knowledge of the heavens was sacred because it reflected balance, the eternal dance between order and chaos, creation and decay. When humanity sought to dominate rather than to harmonize, that knowledge became dangerous. Enoch warned that the misuse of divine understanding would once again draw judgment, for every imbalance ripples through the cosmos, returning to its source. Through his communion with the celestial, he came to grasp that time itself is cyclical. Ages rise and fall like waves, civilizations bloom and fade, yet the divine order remains untouched. In his visions, he saw that every era carries echoes of the last, that history is not a straight line but a spiral moving toward fulfillment. The same forces that shaped the dawn of creation would one day shape its renewal. As he watched the stars wheel across the sky, he felt both awe and sorrow. The heavens spoke of beauty and law, but also of inevitability. For written among those constellations were warnings, signals of decline, renewal, and the return of divine justice. Enoch understood that his task was not only to witness, but to write, to preserve what had been revealed, so that the generations to come might awaken before the final cycle closed. Every night the stars shimmered with a quiet intelligence, whispering truths too vast for words. And in that stillness Enoch listened, hand upon his scroll, heart attuned to the rhythm of creation. Between the turning constellations and the beating of his heart, he found the same pattern, the pulse of eternity echoing within mortal flesh. And so began his transformation from man of earth to scribe of heaven, bearer of secrets written in the sky. Long after Enoch's voice had faded into myth, fragments of his writings continued to move like whispers through time. Ancient scribes spoke of a book said to contain his visions of heaven and the fate of mankind. For generations this book was revered, quoted, and studied beside the earliest sacred texts. But as centuries passed and religious power shifted, those pages became controversial. The leaders of faith began to fear what was written within them, for the words spoke not only of angels and divine order, but also of rebellion, judgment, and the hidden laws that governed the soul. Hidden among the hills of old Judea Those who guarded the ancient wisdom protected Enoch's writings from destruction. Scrolls written in languages nearly lost to memory were sealed within caves, carried across deserts, and buried in secret places. In time, kingdoms rose and fell, empires turned to dust, and the world forgot. When scholars gathered the writings that would form the sacred canon, Enoch's book was quietly removed. Its absence became deliberate, its silence purposeful. Priests called it dangerous, philosophers labeled it heretical, and those who sought it were accused of chasing forbidden truth. For nearly 2 millennia, only faint echoes survived. References hidden in other scriptures, fragments preserved by mystics who refused to let the memory die. Travelers spoke of an ancient manuscript kept in the highlands of Ethiopia, written in the old tongue of Ge'ez. Few believed it truly existed, and fewer dared to search for it. But among those who did, the discovery became one of the most haunting moments in the history of sacred literature. In the late 18th century, an explorer and scholar named James Bruce returned from Abyssinia carrying a treasure unlike any other: several copies of the lost Book of Enoch. They were preserved by the Ethiopian Church, passed down through generations of monks who believed Enoch's message was too sacred to perish. When the manuscripts reached Europe, scholars trembled at the revelation. The words matched those quoted by early Christian writers, proving that the text had once been known to the ancients. What had been dismissed as legend was real, tangible, alive once more. Reading those pages was like hearing the voice of a forgotten prophet rising from the depths of time. The book spoke of cosmic realms, of watchers cast from heaven, of cycles of judgment, and of the promise of renewal. It revealed an entire cosmology that predated much of known theology, a universe alive with order, conflict, and divine justice. The rediscovery challenged long-held assumptions about the origins of prophecy, reshaping the understanding of sacred history itself. As scholars studied the text, they recognized traces of its influence within the Hebrew Bible, the New Testament, and even the Dead Sea Scrolls. The early followers of faith had clearly known and revered it, but over time its content had been erased from public memory. The more one read, the more evident it became that the removal of Enoch's words had not been accidental. Within those visions lay warnings about the corruption of knowledge, the fall of spiritual beings, and the responsibility of humankind in maintaining harmony between worlds. Each passage carried a resonance that reached beyond time. To read it was to feel that the words themselves were alive, vibrating with an ancient rhythm. The prophecies described the destiny of humanity in great arcs, revealing how spiritual decay would spread when divine wisdom was replaced by arrogance. The Book of Enoch was less a collection of stories and more a mirror, reflecting the eternal struggle between enlightenment and corruption. When theologians tried to confine revelation within boundaries, Enoch's words defied those walls. The book refused to be contained by any single creed, belonging instead to the collective memory of all who seek truth beyond dogma. For this reason, institutions both feared and revered it, unsure whether to suppress its message or embrace it as the missing key to understanding the ancient world. Through centuries of silence and rediscovery, the Book of Enoch became more than scripture. It became a symbol, a reminder that sacred knowledge cannot be buried forever. Truth, no matter how deeply concealed, will eventually rise, carried by the unseen current of divine remembrance, waiting for an age ready to listen once again. Across the ages, mystics who read the words of Enoch began to sense that the text contained more than meaning. It carried vibration. The letters themselves seemed alive, as if formed not from ink, but from frequency. When spoken aloud, they resonated with a subtle harmony, producing a sensation that stirred both heart and mind. Ancient tradition claimed that before humanity learned speech, the universe communicated through pure sound, a luminous resonance that shaped matter and thought. Enoch, the scribe of the celestial realms, had been entrusted with this original language, a code that linked all creation. In visions recorded within his writings, he described hearing tones that revealed the structure of existence, harmonies that moved stars, patterns that guided rivers, frequencies that awakened the sleeping consciousness of the world. His encounters with angelic beings were not conversations in any earthly sense, but exchanges of vibration, energy flowing like music between spirits. The words he received were frequencies of light translated into human symbols, bridging infinite realms through sound. Scholars later tried to interpret this concept through linguistics and mysticism, calling it the language of light, a form of sacred speech that existed beyond time, unbound by alphabet or culture. Those who meditated upon it claimed to feel an awakening, as though their thoughts aligned with a deeper current beneath the noise of ordinary language. In that stillness, truth became vibration, and every tone held a spark of divine memory. The idea that words could shape reality was not new, but Enoch's teachings carried it further. He revealed that creation itself began through sound, a resonance that called existence from silence. Every frequency born from that primordial tone continued to echo through space and spirit, forming patterns of life. To speak in alignment with divine resonance was to participate in creation. To speak in dissonance was to unravel harmony. Enoch's writings taught that every voice carried responsibility, for each utterance rippled through the fabric of being. Ancient mystics believed this knowledge could heal or destroy. By tuning one's soul to the vibration of truth, one could restore balance, mend the fractures of the world, and rekindle the light within the self. But when used with pride, the same power could distort nature, awaken shadow, and summon forces beyond comprehension. The language of light was both gift and test, revealing whether humanity would act as guardian or corrupter of creation's harmony. Throughout history, whispers of this divine speech appeared in scattered traditions, chants of monks, hymns of priests, incantations of mystics. Each, in its own way, sought to echo the original resonance that Enoch once heard. The ancient practice of sacred sound, whether through prayer, mantra, or song, all reflected the same forgotten truth. Vibration is the bridge between the visible and the unseen. Modern seekers, exploring sound and energy, began to rediscover fragments of this wisdom. They observed how frequencies influence emotion, how rhythm can alter perception, and how music can open pathways within the mind. Though clothed in scientific language, their discoveries echoed Enoch's revelation that sound shapes form and intention directs vibration. The deeper one delves into the mystery of sacred sound, the more one senses that language itself is divine architecture. Every word spoken in love builds harmony. Every word born of hatred fractures creation's balance. To live consciously is to speak consciously, to recognize that every breath carries creative potential. In this awareness, humanity approaches once more the luminous threshold that Enoch crossed, where sound becomes light and light becomes understanding. When Enoch received visions concerning the fallen watchers, his heart was said to tremble. He saw how their forbidden teachings had spread across the earth, distorting the natural order and corrupting the innocence of creation. Their knowledge, once radiant, had turned poisonous. They taught humanity the art of war, the crafting of metals into weapons, the manipulation of the elements for power rather than harmony. Through them, magic became rebellion, wisdom became vanity, and life itself became a currency of domination. His writings speak of angels who wept at the sight of this devastation. Mountains bled rivers of fire, the stars dimmed with sorrow, and the cries of humanity rose to the heavens. The Nephilim, born of that unholy union, ravaged the world with insatiable hunger. They consumed all living things, even turning upon each other, leaving the earth scarred and trembling. What had been intended as divine communion had become desecration, and the Creator's patience drew thin. In his visions, Enoch was taken before the presence of the great glory to witness the judgment written against the Watchers. The divine voice declared that their power would be stripped, their forms bound within the depths of the earth until the appointed time of reckoning. But before the decree was carried out, Enoch was chosen to deliver their sentence. Imagine the weight of such a task, a mortal standing before immortal beings carrying the authority of heaven itself. The fallen angels pleaded with him, their voices filled with regret and fear. They begged that he intercede on their behalf, that mercy might be granted to those who once served in light. For days he fasted, listening to their lament, torn between compassion and obedience. When he returned with the divine answer, his words sealed their fate. Their repentance would not be accepted, for the corruption they had sown could not be undone. Creation demanded balance, and their transgression had tipped the scales beyond return. Through these visions, Enoch came to understand that every act of rebellion carries consequence. Even celestial beings, radiant in origin, are bound by the laws of harmony. When knowledge is misused, it becomes its own punishment. The Watchers had sought to elevate humanity, but in doing so they chained both heaven and earth in suffering. Their story became the first great warning, that enlightenment without humility leads only to ruin. As he recorded the prophecy, Enoch described a world nearing collapse. The balance between light and shadow teetered on the brink. The Nephilim devoured the earth's resources, nations waged endless war, and hearts turned cold. The divine decree foretold that a cleansing would come, a flood that would purify the corruption of flesh and spirit alike. But before that renewal, every secret deed would be revealed, every hidden thing brought to light. Through the sorrow of his visions, Enoch perceived hope. The same divine force that judged also restored. He saw that destruction was not cruelty but renewal, the breaking of chains that bound creation in decay. The fall of the Watchers was tragic but necessary, a lesson written into the soul of humanity to remind future generations that divine knowledge is sacred, not to be wielded for selfish ends. Long after the floodwaters would recede, the legacy of the Watchers remained. Their whispers continued in dark corners of the world, teaching the misuse of knowledge, twisting wisdom into deceit. But so too did Enoch's message endure, a call to remembrance, urging humanity to seek balance once more, to use the gift of understanding in service of light. Through his visions, the prophet revealed not only the past, but the pattern of all ages to come. Whenever pride rises above humility, whenever creation is manipulated for power, the shadow of the Watchers returns. And each time, the voice of Enoch rises again, gentle but firm, reminding the world that even in darkness, redemption waits for those who remember the harmony written at the beginning of all things. Dark clouds gathered over the ancient world like curtains of mourning, heavy with judgment and sorrow. The breath of creation had grown foul, the harmony between earth and heaven was broken. Enoch's visions had spoken of this time, when the corruption born from the Watchers and their offspring would consume the living and defile the balance of existence. Humanity, once radiant with divine image, had become lost within violence and pride. The waters of the earth stirred as if moved by grief, waiting for the command that would wash away the memory of rebellion. Across the land, the Nephilim roamed like storms given flesh, towering shadows that brought ruin wherever they walked. They devoured the harvest, enslaved humankind, and turned the sacred soil into ash. The cries of the innocent rose upward, trembling against the veil of heaven. Enoch, before being taken from the world, had warned of the coming deluge, a flood not of vengeance but of renewal. His message was one of purification, a call to return to the forgotten harmony of creation. Few listened. Pride had deafened the generations, and the earth's lament became unbearable. When the appointed moment arrived, the skies opened. Rain fell not as a blessing, but as divine sorrow turned tangible. It poured in torrents, a cosmic weeping that erased boundaries between heaven and ground. Mountains shuddered, rivers burst their confines, and cities vanished beneath the rising waters. The air filled with thunderous lamentation as the world returned to its primal state. Water over chaos, silence over noise. It was as though creation itself was being rewritten, cleansed of its own corruption. In ancient memory, this event became the great purification, the washing of the world's spirit. The ark that carried life across the flood became a symbol of mercy amidst destruction, a vessel of remembrance that preserved the seeds of the new age. Each drop of water that fell was both punishment and promise, a tear from the heart of the eternal, mourning what had been lost and blessing what would rise anew. For 40 days and nights, the flood swallowed the monuments of pride. The towers of men, built in defiance, crumbled into the sea. The laughter of kings turned to silence beneath the waves. From the depths, echoes of regret rose, carried by the endless wind. In this vast renewal, the earth was baptized and its wounds began to heal. When the waters receded, the world breathed again, purified but forever changed. Through the flood, the lesson of Enoch's prophecy took living form. That every age of corruption must meet its cleansing, every distortion must yield to balance. Divine mercy is not always gentle. Sometimes it comes as a storm, fierce and complete, so that creation may be reborn. The flood was not an end, but a turning of the wheel, a resetting of the cosmic rhythm that governs all life. In the silence that followed, the sky cleared to reveal a world washed clean. A rainbow arched across the heavens, a covenant written in color and light, signifying that the cycle would not repeat until the appointed age. The waters withdrew, carrying with them the memory of both wrath and grace. From the ashes of the old world rose new generations, unaware that the flood had not been merely natural, but deeply spiritual, the fulfillment of Enoch's warning. Long after the flood, storytellers spoke of it as divine sorrow transformed into mercy. The tale of cleansing became both comfort and caution, reminding every generation that creation, though forgiving, never forgets. When harmony is broken, the universe itself moves to restore it, and through that restoration, the breath of life begins anew. In the stillness following the great cleansing, Enoch was granted visions of a realm beyond the mortal veil, a place where all moments, thoughts, and deeds are recorded in light. These were the heavenly tablets, luminous archives that contain the unfolding story of existence. Each soul, each word spoken, each act of kindness or cruelty was inscribed upon them, etched not with ink, but with energy. To gaze upon them was to perceive the heartbeat of creation itself, the eternal memory that nothing escapes. Before the divine presence, Enoch saw how the universe remembers. Every vibration born of human will echoed within that celestial record. The smallest gesture rippled across dimensions, returning one day to its source. Nothing vanished, nothing was lost. The tablets shimmered like rivers of light, flowing without beginning or end, carrying within them the total memory of all that had ever been or would be. In their brilliance lay both comfort and accountability, for justice and compassion were woven side by side in their glowing script. Angelic beings, tended to these archives, keepers of divine memory who ensured that balance remained unbroken. They were not judges, but witnesses reflecting the perfection of order that holds the cosmos together. Enoch was told that these tablets were the foundation upon which destiny rests, and that each life contributes a verse to the infinite song of creation. Human existence was not random. It was a sacred narrative constantly being written and rewritten through choice, thought, and desire. Through this revelation, Enoch came to understand that time itself is layered within the tablets. Past, present, and future coexist like threads woven through one tapestry. To read their surface was to glimpse eternity unfolding, patterns within patterns, destinies intersecting, worlds evolving in divine rhythm. He learned that even divine judgment arises not from wrath, but from the natural balance written into the structure of being. Every consequence follows its origin, every shadow finds its light. The heavenly tablets revealed how nothing in creation escapes remembrance. Forgotten deeds, hidden intentions, unspoken prayers, all are preserved. Enoch wept when he realized that humanity lives unaware of this great recording, believing actions vanish into silence. In truth, every moment is eternal, and the universe listens. He saw that the true measure of a soul is not wealth or power, but the resonance it leaves within the cosmic memory. This vision of divine record-keeping carried both awe and humility. For those who walk in harmony, the tablets shine like mirrors of gold. For those who sow destruction, their names are written in shadow. Yet even those marks of darkness are not eternal, for redemption can rewrite the script. Each act of repentance, each gesture of love, becomes a stroke of light upon the page, transforming even the deepest stain. To humanity, Enoch's vision served as a revelation of interconnectedness. No word is wasted, no thought without weight. Every action joins the eternal story, adding either harmony or discord to the music of existence. Through this understanding, the veil between heaven and earth grows thinner, and the awareness of responsibility deepens. When Enoch returned from that realm, his countenance glowed with serenity. He had seen the truth of divine remembrance and knew that the universe itself was a living consciousness. Every heartbeat echoed in eternity, every moment a note in the endless song of creation. Through the tablets, he had glimpsed the eternal justice that neither punishes nor forgets, but always restores. Upon being lifted into the higher realms, Enoch beheld a vision of vast magnificence, 7 radiant mountains rising from the foundation of paradise. Each peak glowed with a distinct light, and together they formed the structure of the celestial world. The air shimmered with energy, filled with the sound of distant choirs and flowing rivers of flame. He was guided by beings of immense presence, who led him through the sacred range where the mysteries of creation were preserved in living form. The first mountain blazed with white fire, its summit crowned by a brilliance that no mortal eye could endure. It represented purity, the essence of uncorrupted light. Upon its slopes, Enoch felt the memory of the divine source, the original harmony that breathed life into all worlds. Every sound, every particle vibrated in unity, untouched by the discord of the lower realms. Standing upon that height, he perceived the beginning of all things as a single, radiant thought. The second mountain glimmered with sapphire hues, a realm of knowledge and sacred order. Streams of liquid light flowed from its peaks, forming rivers that carried wisdom to the farthest corners of the cosmos. Angelic scribes dwelled there, inscribing divine law into the currents of time. From this mountain, the principles of justice and understanding radiated outward, guiding civilizations and souls alike toward equilibrium. The third peak burned crimson with the fire of transformation. Here, Enoch witnessed the eternal dance between destruction and creation. Flames roared like symphonies, consuming what was decayed and giving birth to renewal. It was the mountain of divine judgment, where the essence of all change begins. Those who ascend in spirit must pass through its purifying fire before continuing upward, for only through release can higher vision be attained. Golden light covered the fourth mountain, a place of compassion and healing. The air vibrated with gentle tones that soothed the spirit and restored all that was wounded. From its heart flowed rivers of living energy, weaving through the celestial realms like veins of grace. Enoch felt within this place the balance of mercy and power, the tenderness that sustains existence when all else falls away. The fifth mountain shimmered with emerald radiance, filled with gardens that stretched beyond sight. Trees of eternal bloom swayed in the luminous breeze, their leaves singing in languages unknown to man. It represented growth and renewal, the perpetual expansion of consciousness. Here, Enoch perceived that creation never rests. It is forever evolving, spiraling toward the fullness of divine realization. From the sixth mountain rose streams of silver mist, swirling like dreams. It was a realm of reflection where the soul confronts the truth of itself. Mirrors of light surrounded the summit, revealing not faces, but the essence of being, every memory, every intention, every unspoken desire. Standing before his reflection, Enoch saw both his humanity and his divine potential, understanding that enlightenment requires self-recognition before transcendence. At last, the seventh mountain towered beyond all comprehension. It shimmered with countless colors that merged into pure radiance, a throne of eternal glory resting upon its peak. From this summit emanated the pulse of creation, the very heart of divine consciousness. It was here that Enoch felt the universe breathing, every star, every world, every soul moving in rhythm with that eternal heartbeat. The great light surrounded him, and for a moment he was no longer separate, but one with all. Descending from the seven mountains, Enoch carried within him the harmony of the heavens. Each peak had revealed a facet of divine truth: purity, wisdom, transformation, mercy, growth, reflection, and unity. Together they formed the sacred architecture of creation, mirrored within the human soul. Those who seek the path of light must climb these inner mountains, ascending not through distance, but through awakening. Within the vast architecture of heaven, Enoch beheld the harmony of celestial order, a living hierarchy of luminous beings who shaped and guarded the balance of creation. Each choir, each rank, each radiance had its role within the divine symphony. There were no divisions of pride among them, only unity through purpose. Enoch described their arrangement as circles of light revolving around the great glory, each emanation pulsing like the rhythm of a cosmic heart. Every name he heard carried resonance, a vibration so powerful it stirred the foundations of his soul. At the outermost circle he saw legions of angels that moved like tides of light, carrying the breath of divine will across the universe. Their forms were vast and shifting, composed of sound, color, and energy rather than flesh. These were the guardians of worlds, keepers of natural law, who ensured that stars remained steady and seasons flowed in harmony. Their radiance was both gentle and absolute, embodying the precision of divine mathematics in motion. Closer to the throne, Enoch encountered the archangels, beings of higher command, whose presence merged intellect, emotion, and purpose into perfect equilibrium. Michael stood foremost among them, embodiment of justice and divine strength. His presence burned with golden fire, and in his hand he held the balance of truth. Through him, the Creator's will became action. Through his sword, corruption found its limit. Beside him shone Raphael, guardian of healing and restoration. His light shimmered in emerald tones, bringing renewal to all that was fractured. He guided the flow of celestial energy that sustained both body and spirit, ensuring that every wound, whether physical or spiritual, would one day find its restoration. To Enoch, his touch felt like spring wind, powerful, cleansing, and compassionate beyond measure. Gabriel's voice resounded next, clear and resonant as a bell echoing across eternity. He was the messenger, the herald of divine revelation, whose sound shaped prophecy into form. Through his vibration, thought became word, and word became creation. In his presence, Enoch felt the weight of language, the realization that every utterance carries destiny. Gabriel embodied the sacred bridge between divine mind and human understanding. Among the circles stood Uriel, angel of wisdom and flame. His radiance burned crimson and gold, illuminating the hidden paths of knowledge. Through him, mysteries unfolded like petals opening toward the sun. Enoch saw that Uriel governed the unfolding of history, revealing how time itself bends under divine guidance. His presence was like fire that does not consume, fierce but purifying, stern but filled with insight. Deeper still, Enoch perceived other choirs whose names could scarcely be spoken. Cherubim, seraphim, thrones, and dominions each formed an aspect of divine consciousness. Their movements resembled vast geometries of light, spirals within spirals, patterns that guided the very structure of reality. The seraphim blazed closest to the source, singing harmonies that sustained existence. Their song was creation's heartbeat, an eternal vibration that kept the cosmos alive. Through witnessing these hierarchies, Enoch came to understand the nature of divine order. Creation was not a static kingdom, but a living organism of consciousness. Every being, from mortal to angelic, existed within the flow of purpose, moving toward greater understanding of unity. The universe itself was structured as a ladder of illumination, and to ascend it was not to rise above others, but to harmonize more deeply with truth. As he returned from that radiant vision, Enoch carried within him the awareness that even among angels, growth continues. Perfection is not an endpoint, but an eternal unfolding. The hierarchies were not symbols of superiority, but reflections of divine progression. Reminders that every soul, whether of light or flesh, moves toward the same luminous destiny. During a night filled with stillness and unearthly glow, Enoch was shown a vision of time divided into 10 great epochs, each represented as a week within the cosmic calendar. This revelation unfolded before him like a vast mural painted in light and shadow, portraying the journey of humanity from its awakening to its final transformation. He was told that history follows rhythm, not chaos, that every age carries purpose, and each culmination opens a gate to the next. In the first of those weeks, he saw humanity's dawn. The world was young, filled with innocence and wonder. The children of Adam walked among the gardens of creation, learning from the earth and the stars alike. Harmony prevailed, for the breath of the Creator was still fresh within all living things. This age reflected the purity of beginnings, where knowledge and reverence coexisted in perfect balance. The second week brought the birth of corruption. Pride crept into the human heart, and the harmony of the world began to fracture. Civilizations arose grand and beautiful, but built upon arrogance and conquest. The Watchers descended during this time, introducing forbidden knowledge, altering the course of destiny. The balance between heaven and earth faltered, setting in motion the cycle of judgment that would echo through all remaining ages. In the third week, Enoch saw the emergence of divine intervention. Prophets and seers were raised to call humanity back to balance. Their voices carried warnings and promises, urging repentance and harmony. The flood came as both cleansing and renewal, washing away the remnants of corruption while preserving the seed of redemption. Through destruction, the world was reborn into new purity. The fourth week unveiled the rise of sacred law. From the remnants of the flood survivors emerged those who received divine instruction, guiding humanity toward order and justice. Wisdom flowed once more into the hearts of the faithful, and the covenant between Creator and creation was reaffirmed. This age shone with discipline and faith, a period of structure built upon remembrance of divine truth. The fifth week glimmered with revelation and struggle. Great nations arose, temples were built, and humanity sought to understand the mysteries of divinity. Yet within this quest, corruption returned, hiding within devotion itself. The pure flame of worship dimmed as power intertwined with faith. Even in reverence, pride found root, and the sacred teachings became veiled behind ritual and hierarchy. In the sixth week, a new awakening began. The prophets of light spoke once again, reminding humanity of its forgotten destiny. Their words were met with resistance, and many were silenced, but their message endured like embers beneath the ashes. From their sacrifice grew the promise of renewal, a seed of hope buried within the chaos of human striving. The seventh week revealed an era of revelation and division. Great spiritual knowledge returned, but humanity's heart was torn between truth and deception. Forces of light and shadow battled within the soul of the world. It was a time of awakening, where many would glimpse eternity, but few would fully understand it. The struggle between purity and corruption became internal, fought within the conscience of every being. The eighth week shone with the light of discernment. Those who sought truth for its own sake began to rise, forming communities of peace and wisdom. Knowledge once hidden became accessible, and the veils between heaven and earth began to thin. The earth itself shifted, preparing for the culmination of ages. The ninth week unveiled transformation. Spiritual consciousness expanded, and humanity began to remember its forgotten origin. Many resisted, clinging to illusions of power, but a quiet current of awakening flowed beneath the noise of empires. The world trembled as the final cycle approached. The 10th week, radiant beyond description, revealed the fulfillment of all prophecy. Not destruction, but transfiguration, a world restored to harmony, every wound healed, every shadow redeemed. Enoch was told that this final week would not arrive suddenly, but unfold through awakening when humankind recognizes the divine image within itself once again. His vision was not of fear, but of completion, the reunion of creation with its eternal source. As Enoch's visions continued, he saw an age far removed from his own, an era filled with light that deceives, knowledge that confuses, and faith that fades like smoke in the wind. He beheld the final generation, the time when humanity would stand on the edge of remembrance and forgetfulness, where wisdom would be abundant but understanding scarce. This vision unfolded not as myth, but as reflection, a mirror held up to the heart of every era where spirit gives way to pride. The world he saw was radiant with invention. Cities glittered beneath artificial stars, and humanity had learned to command the forces once known only to angels. Machines carried the will of humankind to the heavens, but the soul of creation trembled beneath the weight of mastery. The air buzzed with endless communication, voices filling the void, yet silence. That ancient doorway to the divine had been forgotten. He saw that the people of that age would pursue immortality through science rather than spirit, seeking eternity within matter instead of within light. They would speak of progress while drifting further from the source of life. The knowledge that once lifted humanity toward understanding would become its chain, binding hearts to the illusion of control. The same forbidden curiosity that tempted the watchers would awaken again, now dressed in new forms. Amidst this brilliance, faith would flicker. The sacred would become entertainment, prophecy reduced to spectacle. Words of truth would lose their weight, drowned in the noise of countless voices claiming to possess enlightenment. The stars would be studied as distant objects no longer seen as the living script of creation. Humanity would look upward without reverence, seeking not communion but conquest. In this generation, Enoch saw confusion between light and shadow. Those who deceived would appear radiant, speaking of peace while sowing division. False teachers would rise, promising salvation through knowledge alone, ignoring the humility that opens the heart. Spirituality would become imitation, a mirror without reflection, glittering with beauty but hollow within. The divine voice would whisper still, but few would pause long enough to hear. Through the mist of his vision he perceived small gatherings of souls who remembered. Hidden among the chaos, they sought truth in quiet places, not in temples or towers, but in silence and compassion. They listened to the pulse of the earth, the murmur of the stars, and the memory of the ancient covenant. These were the keepers of balance, preserving light not through might, but through awareness. The final generation, though surrounded by illusion, carried within it the greatest potential. For in the face of deception, awakening becomes inevitable. When humanity reaches the limits of pride, when every illusion has failed, the longing for truth burns brighter than ever. Enoch saw that through struggle, the spirit would remember its purpose. Those who turned inward, who listened deeply, would rediscover the forgotten bond between soul and creation. His prophecy was not of despair, but of return. The age of confusion would pass like a storm, clearing the way for remembrance. The awakening of that generation would not come through miracles, but through realization that divinity was never lost, only obscured. The final age would be the moment when humanity, standing upon the edge of its own creation, would look inward and find heaven waiting within. Through the veil of vision, Enoch saw the emergence of a radiant figure, a being of divine origin clothed in human form, walking among the generations of earth. He was called the Elect One, the Chosen of Light, a presence destined to bridge the distance between the Creator and the created. His countenance shone not with the fire of judgment, but with the serenity of restoration. Where he walked, discord found harmony, and where despair lingered, hope took root. Enoch understood that this figure was not born merely to lead, but to awaken, carrying the light of remembrance through the darkest age of forgetfulness. In his vision, Enoch beheld the heavens open above a world shrouded in shadow. The stars themselves seemed to bow toward this luminous being, their songs vibrating in gentle reverence. The Elect One stood among humanity without crown or sword, yet his authority radiated from within, silent but undeniable. He was the living embodiment of divine mercy, reflecting the image of the eternal through every act, every word, every breath. Power flowed through him, but it was not domination, it was presence, a living current of truth that moved effortlessly through time. Prophecies from the ancients had spoken of one who would carry wisdom beyond measure, whose voice would cut through deception like dawn through mist. He would remind humanity of its origin, of its bond with the eternal source. In him, the old promises found their living fulfillment. Enoch saw that this figure did not arrive to establish empire or doctrine, but to restore harmony between heaven and earth. His mission was not conquest, but reconciliation, a sacred remembrance that creation was always meant to dwell in unity with its maker. Throughout the ages, poets, mystics, and prophets would speak of this elect one under many names: Son of Man, Redeemer, Light of Worlds. Each description reflected a fragment of the greater truth, a reflection of what Enoch had witnessed in full. His presence symbolized divine compassion manifested in mortal form, a living key unlocking the hearts of those imprisoned by illusion. He was not an outsider to humanity, but its awakened essence, a mirror in which all could glimpse their own forgotten divinity. Enoch's vision revealed the moment when this luminous being would stand before the council of heaven, surrounded by multitudes of angelic hosts. His name was written upon the tablets of glory, and his destiny intertwined with the fate of all creation. The righteous rejoiced at his coming, while the forces of corruption trembled, unable to endure the brilliance of his gaze. His light exposed all deceit, stripping away the disguises of those who serve darkness under the guise of truth. In his presence, the fabric of falsehood unraveled like smoke. This elect one carried not weapons of destruction, but words that healed. His power lay in revelation, the simple, unshakable truth that love is stronger than judgment, that forgiveness transcends vengeance, and that divine order cannot be corrupted forever. His message stirred remembrance within the hearts of the weary, calling every soul to awaken from its long sleep. Through his voice, Enoch heard the echo of the original harmony, the same resonance that once shaped the stars. He walked the world as both human and celestial, understanding the suffering of mortals while holding the wisdom of eternity. His compassion was vast, but it was not passive. It burned with purpose, restoring balance where chaos had taken root. His presence reminded the world that redemption is not escape from judgment, but transformation through awareness. Those who opened their hearts to his light found peace. Those who resisted saw their own illusions crumble. Enoch perceived that through the elect one, the cycle of ages would begin to close. The divine would walk once more among creation, not as wrath, but as unity. His coming signified not an end, but a beginning, the birth of a new consciousness where humanity and divinity would stand face to face. Within that realization, the voice of Enoch faded into silence, awed by the majesty of what he had witnessed, the convergence of heaven and earth within one perfect light. From the summit of his vision, Enoch beheld a realm of dazzling terror and beauty, the place where divine justice flows like living fire. Rivers of flame wound through the foundations of creation, not consuming but purifying, not destroying but revealing truth in its purest form. These currents of celestial fire were the embodiment of divine memory, carrying within them the consequences of all actions, the harmonies and dissonances of every soul. To step into them was to be known completely, stripped of pretense and shadow, illuminated by the essence of truth itself. The landscape shimmered like molten glass, alive with radiant heat that glowed from within. Enoch saw multitudes gathered before the throne of the Eternal, each soul confronted by the light of its own creation. There were no words, no arguments, only reflection, the undeniable recognition of what one had become. The rivers flowed around them, washing away illusion, refining essence from distortion. Every being that entered the current emerged transformed, cleansed of deceit, its spirit realigned with the cosmic rhythm. This was not judgment as mortals imagined it, a courtroom of punishment, but the final act of purification. The fire did not burn as punishment, but as awakening. Enoch saw that every spark of existence longed to return to the source, and the rivers were the path home. To resist the current was agony, to surrender to it was peace beyond understanding. Through that surrender, all things found reconciliation. The archangels stood along the riverbanks, guiding souls through their passage. Michael radiated the brilliance of unwavering truth, ensuring that justice remained balanced. Raphael moved like a current of emerald flame, healing the broken energies that emerged from the depths. Gabriel's voice echoed across the expanse, calling each soul by name, awakening remembrance within them. Every sound, every shimmer of light was part of a sacred orchestration, a cosmic purification composed by the will of eternity. Above it all, Enoch beheld the throne of glory, its light indescribable, its power absolute. Around it revolved galaxies of living flame, each representing a realm, a cycle, an age fulfilled. The elect one stood before it, radiant beyond comprehension, his countenance serene. Through him, judgment became restoration. He gathered the redeemed within his light, not as conqueror, but as shepherd, guiding creation back into harmony. The rivers of fire carried away the remnants of corruption, dissolving all that could not exist in truth. From their depths rose new worlds, shimmering with clarity and renewal. Enoch realized that this was the eternal rhythm. Dissolution followed by rebirth, darkness transmuted into light. Creation itself was sustained by this cycle of purification, ensuring that even in judgment, love remained sovereign. Across the cosmic expanse, Enoch saw that every star, every atom reflected this principle. Fire and water, destruction and birth, chaos and order, all were aspects of the same divine movement. Judgment was not separate from mercy, it was mercy in its highest form, cleansing the world of its self-inflicted shadows. When he turned his gaze back to the rivers, he recognized within their depths the memories of ages past, civilizations, souls, forgotten prayers, all flowing toward the same destination. Nothing was truly lost. Every fragment of existence would one day return, purified by the living fire, embraced once more by the light from which it came. Through visions woven with radiance, Enoch was shown mysteries that linked the realms of above and below, the sacred keys that bind heaven and earth in eternal correspondence. These were not objects of metal or stone, but principles of consciousness, powers granted to those who understand the balance of all things. Each key represented a law, an understanding, a realization of unity between visible and invisible worlds. Holding them meant holding alignment with the divine order itself. He saw how the first key belonged to wisdom, the awareness that creation is not divided but interwoven. Every act on earth ripples through the heavens, and every movement of the stars whispers into the soul of humankind. To wield this key was to live in harmony with the rhythm of existence, to perceive that all opposites are reflections of the same truth. Those who grasped this wisdom walked the world lightly, carrying peace where discord dwelled. The second key revealed understanding of time. Enoch perceived that eternity and the present moment are not separate realms, but mirror reflections. The flow of time upon the earth echoes the eternal cycles within heaven. By aligning one's consciousness with this truth, one learns to move beyond fear, for birth and death become waves within the same ocean. Those who hold this key awaken from illusion, seeing that nothing truly perishes, only transforms. Another key opened the gate of compassion. Enoch witnessed its power as a force that bridges dimensions, healing the rift between divine and human. Compassion is not weakness, but the resonance of creation's own heart. When expressed fully, It becomes the most potent form of divine energy, capable of restoring harmony to fractured realities. This key, he realized, was the true instrument of ascension, not knowledge alone, but love made conscious. He was shown the key of word and intention, the mastery of vibration. Speech, when aligned with divine truth, carries the power to build or dissolve worlds. Every utterance becomes a creative act, every silence a field of potential. Through this awareness, humanity holds within its voice the echo of the original sound that gave birth to existence. To speak in purity is to harmonize with creation's song. A fifth key revealed the secret of equilibrium and the perfect balance between action and stillness, will and surrender. Enoch saw that the structure of heaven itself rests upon this harmony. To act without attachment, to strive without pride, to surrender without despair. These are the states through which divine flow moves unhindered. This key governs both cosmic order and personal awakening. He perceived that within every human being, fragments of these keys already reside. They are not granted from above, but remembered from within, waiting to be awakened through awareness and devotion. When the soul aligns with truth, the keys unlock naturally, restoring the bond between heaven and earth. Through this realization, Enoch saw that enlightenment is not acquisition, but remembrance, a return to the original harmony of being. Before him stood the final key, luminous beyond description, pulsating with living light. It symbolized unity, the fusion of all principles into one. To hold this key was to perceive that heaven and earth were never truly separate, that every breath, every heartbeat, every flicker of thought connects the mortal and the divine. This key opened not gates of gold, but the gates within the soul, through which eternity flows endlessly. When Enoch received these revelations, he understood his role as guardian, not owner. The keys were not possessions but responsibilities entrusted to those who seek balance with humility. Through their remembrance, humanity could restore what was lost, the sacred link between matter and spirit, creation and creator. And as the vision faded, he felt the quiet truth of their power resonating within him. Heaven is within the heart that remembers, and earth becomes sacred when touched by that awareness. Across the vast expanse of human history, the voice of Enoch did not vanish into silence. His name, like a distant chord reverberating through ages, continued to appear in sacred writings scattered across cultures and faiths. Every tradition that encountered his memory seemed to recognize a hidden resonance within his story, a reflection of a truth too universal to belong to one people alone. His presence became a thread weaving together the fabric of prophecy, linking scriptures that otherwise stood apart, reminding seekers that revelation is not confined to any single path. Within ancient Hebrew texts, echoes of Enoch resounded beneath the surface of divine law. Prophets spoke of heavenly ascents, of fiery chariots, and celestial scribes recording human deeds, imagery that bore the unmistakable shadow of his vision. The story of Elijah's ascent mirrored his own, suggesting that the door to heaven opened not once, but whenever a mortal achieved perfect harmony with the divine. The Book of Jubilees preserved fragments of his wisdom, describing him as the first among men to write by inspiration, a scribe of righteousness who unveiled the secrets of time and judgment. Early Christian writings embraced his figure with reverence, recognizing in his story a prefiguration of the divine mission of the elect one. The Epistle of Jude directly quoted his prophecy concerning the Lord's coming with 10,000s of angels, declaring that even before written scripture, the warning of Enoch had already sounded across creation. Church fathers debated his book, torn between admiration and apprehension, aware that it held insights both enlightening and perilous. To read it was to glimpse mysteries that lay beyond institutional control. Among the deserts of Qumran, fragments of Enoch's writings rested in silence for 2,000 years, until the Dead Sea Scrolls revealed their presence once more. Those hidden texts confirmed that the Essenes, seekers of purity and cosmic order, regarded Enoch as their ancestor in spirit. They saw in him a pattern for ascension, the model of one who transcends corruption through divine communion. His teachings on angelic realms, cosmic law, and moral judgment formed the foundation of their mystical practice, shaping an understanding of time as a series of sacred cycles. Far beyond the Middle East, whispers of Enoch appeared under different names and forms. In the mystical writings of Persia, he was known as Idris, a prophet who taught humankind the arts of writing, science, and contemplation. The Quran revered him as one exalted to a high station, a man of truth raised into the heavens. To followers of Islam, Idris symbolized divine knowledge preserved through humility, the human intellect in its purest alignment with the Creator's will. His elevation mirrored that of Enoch, affirming that sacred wisdom transcends the boundaries of creed. Through Gnostic traditions, his legacy took on new form. Hidden among the esoteric writings of Alexandria and the deserts of Egypt, Enoch was portrayed as the first to receive the secret names of the divine powers that govern creation. These writings described his transformation into Metatron, the angel of presence, who stands nearest to the throne of light. His voice became the bridge between infinite and finite, the living channel through which the divine word passed into mortal understanding. To initiates of mystery schools, Enoch represented not a person, but a state of awakened consciousness. Even within later mystical thought, his influence endured. Kabbalistic scholars revered him as the guardian of sacred geometry and the keeper of celestial records. His name was spoken in quiet tones during meditations upon the Tree of Life, his story representing the ascent through the 10 spheres of divine emanation. To ascend as Enoch ascended was to move inward toward the heart of God, to climb through the dimensions of spirit until the illusion of separation dissolved completely. Through centuries of translation and transformation, his message remained constant, that humanity and divinity are not apart, but intertwined. Across religions, his figure served as proof that revelation flows continuously through creation, not limited by language, culture, or time. He stood as a silent witness across ages, reminding seekers that truth, when spoken in purity, becomes a universal inheritance. Though his writings were hidden and his story fragmented, their echoes remain alive in every heart that yearns for understanding. Whether called Enoch, Idris, Metatron, or Scribe of the Heavens, he remains a symbol of remembrance, a light reflected across all faiths pointing toward the same eternal source. Among the most profound revelations granted to Enoch was the vision of the celestial archives, the hidden library of the angels. This vast repository was not built of stone or guarded by doors, but composed of living light. Its corridors stretched beyond dimension, filled with voices that sang rather than spoke, each tone carrying the knowledge of an age. Within its depths were preserved the memories of creation, the blueprints of worlds, and the wisdom of countless civilizations that had risen and faded like waves upon the sea of eternity. He was led into this radiant expanse by luminous beings who shimmered like crystal fire. They moved without sound, their gestures weaving pathways through the luminous air. Before him stood endless rows of what appeared to be tablets, scrolls, and spheres of radiant energy, each one pulsating with rhythm and awareness. Every record he approached revealed visions, galaxies forming, souls descending into matter, stars extinguishing and rekindling across cosmic cycles. The library was alive, a breathing consciousness that remembered all things. Within that sanctum of light, Enoch learned that knowledge is not stored as words, but as resonance. Each fragment of wisdom vibrates in perfect harmony with the truth it conveys. Those who enter the archives must align their frequency to what they seek. Only then do the records open. To the unprepared, the library remains silent, a hall of blinding radiance concealing infinite depth. To the pure of heart, it unfolds like a flower, revealing the secrets of existence layer by layer. He was shown how angels guard this library, not as keepers of possession, but as stewards of balance. They ensure that knowledge flows only where readiness exists, for wisdom released too early becomes peril. Every age receives precisely what it can bear, no more, no less. Within their luminous stewardship lies the reason divine truth appears hidden, not through concealment, but through protection. Among the records Enoch encountered were the chronicles of humanity's forgotten past. He saw civilizations far older than any known, rising with brilliance and falling through hubris. He learned that each age leaves behind traces of sacred memory, temples aligned with the stars, languages carrying echoes of the celestial tongue, myths preserving glimpses of truth. Humanity has always been both student and teacher in the divine classroom, learning through creation, forgetting through pride, and rediscovering through grace. The library also contained the knowledge of healing, of harmony between spirit and matter. Patterns of sacred sound, the geometry of light, and the design of the soul's journey were inscribed within its living architecture. Enoch realized that this was the true source of all wisdom that would later emerge upon earth, the origin of science, art, and philosophy. Every discovery made by humankind was a fragment remembered from this eternal archive. In a chamber brighter than dawn, he was shown the record of destinies, a crystalline structure containing the unfolding patterns of all life. Within its shifting lights, he perceived the rise and fall of empires, the birth of prophets, the cycles of awakening. Nothing was fixed, for destiny itself shimmered like liquid fire, responsive to choice and intention. The library did not dictate fate, it reflected possibility, showing what becomes when will and divine harmony align. As he gazed deeper, Enoch sensed that this library existed not only in heaven but within every soul. Each human heart carries its own fragment of the divine archive, a memory of the infinite. Through contemplation, purity, and silence, that memory can awaken, revealing knowledge not learned but remembered. The library of angels is not a distant realm. It is the interior temple where creation whispers its truth to those who listen. When he was guided back from that realm, Enoch understood that wisdom cannot truly be lost. What is hidden is merely waiting for recognition, and every soul that seeks truth adds light to the eternal archive. Knowledge is sacred because it carries responsibility, and those who bear it become co-creators in the unfolding of divine will. Through this revelation, he grasped that enlightenment is not discovery, but participation, a communion with the living memory of all that is. Visions of deep twilight filled Enoch's sight when he was shown the future stirrings of ancient forces. He saw the shadows of the old watchers move once more within the fabric of creation, not as winged giants descending from heaven, but as ideas, impulses, and ambitions awakening within the human spirit. What had once taken form in flesh now returned through thought. The same thirst for forbidden knowledge, the same yearning to command rather than commune, began to stir again in the hearts of humanity. Across the ages, that energy lay dormant beneath the surface of progress. Every invention born from curiosity carried both potential for enlightenment and danger of corruption. When humanity reached deeper into the mysteries of matter, splitting atoms, mapping genes, and bending nature to its will, Enoch saw reflections of the ancient rebellion reawakening. The Watchers had not vanished. Their influence lived on within the unbalanced desire for mastery without wisdom. The vision unfolded into scenes of a world brilliant, yet fragile, towers of light rising from cities that pierced the clouds, machines singing songs of creation, minds touching realms once thought divine. Humanity had become both the student and the teacher, wielding the very forces of life. But within that brilliance pulsed a familiar arrogance, a blindness to consequence. The line between creation and manipulation blurred once again. He saw the earth groaning under the weight of this awakening. The natural world, once in harmony, trembled as humans altered its design. Rivers changed course, skies dimmed, and creatures of the air and sea grew confused. The sacred balance between spirit and substance strained under the pressure of unchecked ambition. The Watcher's legacy whispered through laboratories and temples alike, enticing humankind with the promise of godhood without the discipline of compassion. Still, within the same vision, light persisted. For every act of corruption there were souls who remembered. Scientists guided by conscience, seekers devoted to harmony, hearts awakening to the sacred interconnection of all things. The same knowledge that could destroy also held the power to heal, depending on the intention behind its use. Enoch realized that humanity stood once more at the crossroads where the ancient ones had fallen, given the chance to choose differently. The awakening of the Watchers was not purely external, but internal. A mirror held up to the soul of humankind. Pride, curiosity, creativity, and fear intertwined within every individual. The ancient struggle between wisdom and arrogance lived within each thought, each decision. Through this awakening, the final test of humanity would not come from celestial beings descending from above, but from within the human heart itself. In his vision, Enoch heard the whisper of divine mercy reminding creation that nothing is beyond redemption. Even the fire of rebellion can become light when transformed by understanding. The fallen knowledge that once brought ruin could, when purified by love, restore balance. The awakening of the Watchers was not only a warning, but also an invitation to remember the responsibility that accompanies divine power. As the vision faded, Enoch saw humanity standing before a great dawn. The same flames that once burned the world now shimmered as potential illumination. Whether those fires would cleanse or consume depended on the choice of the collective spirit. He knew that the echoes of his ancient warnings still lingered within the conscience of humankind, waiting for ears willing to listen. From the silence of his vision rose one clear truth. The return of the Watchers is not a prophecy of doom, but a mirror of awakening. What humanity becomes depends on whether it repeats the errors of the past or rises to fulfill its forgotten destiny. To walk once more in balance with heaven, guided not by pride, but by remembrance of the light from which it came. Through the final veil of vision, Enoch beheld an age unlike any before, a time when the boundary between the visible and invisible grew thin, when the breath of heaven moved once more upon the face of the world. He saw that his spirit had never departed entirely from the realm of mortals, but lingered in the whisper of intuition, in the quiet longing of those who seek truth beyond illusion. The return of Enoch was not of flesh and form, but of consciousness, an awakening that spread gently through the collective soul of humanity, reminding it of what had always been within. He perceived generations stirred by dreams they could not explain, visions of light, voices calling from beyond time, patterns in the stars echoing his ancient teachings. These were not coincidences, but signals of remembrance, the same knowledge once hidden, now unfolding in the hearts of those prepared to receive it. Through art, through science, through prayer, humanity began to rediscover the divine rhythm that binds all things. The lost language of harmony, long buried beneath centuries of noise, began to rise again, carried on the breath of awakening souls. He saw that his presence returned whenever the world reached a threshold between forgetting and remembering. Each time corruption darkened the earth, light would emerge from within it, a spark of divine memory refusing to be extinguished. Enoch's essence moved through these sparks, awakening awareness, guiding visionaries, and rekindling the understanding that the heavens are not distant but mirrored within every living being. His spirit became a current, flowing through time itself, whispering across generations that the divine still walks among humankind, not as deity above, but as consciousness within. As the veil between worlds thinned, humanity began to perceive what the prophets had seen, the intricate connection between thought and reality, word and manifestation, action and eternity. Every choice became sacred, every breath a prayer. The old barriers of creed and separation dissolved, replaced by recognition that truth is one light refracted through many lenses. The return of Enoch was not an event of spectacle, but of awakening, a quiet revolution of the soul, unseen by many, but felt by all who listened deeply. Through his vision, he saw the earth glowing with subtle radiance. Mountains pulsed with energy, rivers shimmered with awareness, and the stars above reflected the thoughts of those below. The forgotten harmony between heaven and creation returned, not through force, but through remembrance. People began to walk with reverence once more, speaking words that carried intention, acting with consciousness of their place within the divine tapestry. The prophecy had been fulfilled, not through destruction, but through illumination. Enoch's voice, carried across ages, became the song of awakening. It echoed in meditation halls, in quiet moments, beneath the night sky, in the eyes of those who see beyond division. His message endured, that enlightenment is not escape from the world, but unity with it, that heaven and earth were never separated, only misunderstood. Through his return, humanity rediscovered the simple truth that love, awareness, and creation are one and the same force moving through all existence. He watched as generations began to live as co-creators rather than conquerors, builders rather than destroyers. The watcher's shadow, once feared, became a reminder of the delicate balance that must always be honored. Knowledge was no longer a weapon, but a song, and science found harmony with spirit once more. Humanity, having faced its reflection and chosen awareness over arrogance, began to shine with the light that had been its birthright since the dawn of time. From that place of vision, Enoch's spirit rose into stillness, not to depart, but to dwell among the living memory of the cosmos. His return was not an arrival, but a revelation that he had never truly left. Through every heart awakened to the sacredness of being, through every soul that remembers its divine origin, Enoch walks still, unseen but ever present, guiding creation toward its eternal home in light. As the final words of Enoch's story fade into the quiet hum of the universe, the air seems to shimmer with the same mystery that has always surrounded his name. His journey is not only a tale of ancient days, but a mirror held to our own. A reminder that awakening begins in silence, and that the voice of truth still speaks to those who listen. The story of Enoch does not end with his ascent. It continues in every act of kindness, every breath taken in awareness, every thought that reaches toward light instead of shadow. Perhaps tonight, as you drift into rest, the same voice that called to him will whisper softly to you, not from the heavens above, but from the quiet place within. For the wisdom of Enoch is not history, it is remembrance. His words, written across the stars and within the human spirit, invite all who hear them to remember what has been forgotten, that we are not apart from creation, but part of its divine melody. If this story moved you, if you felt the presence of that ancient light stirring within your heart, let it continue to travel. Support this journey by subscribing to the channel so that the voice of hidden wisdom may reach others searching for meaning in the stillness of night. Leave a comment sharing your thoughts, for every reflection adds a new spark to this growing constellation of seekers. Show your appreciation with a like, a simple gesture that helps this message find its way through the endless web of voices. Share this film with those you love, friends, family, anyone who might need to remember that mystery still lives in the world. Together we keep the ancient flame alive, passing the light forward, one awakened soul at a time. For in sharing the story of Enoch, we do more than recount the past. We become part of the same eternal rhythm, carrying his whisper into the future, the whisper that reminds us that divinity is not far away, but already within us, waiting only to be remembered.